Unlocking your digital transformation with Azure API Management. We're going to start by looking at what digital transformation actually means and how APIs are really at the core of it, enabling a new business model called the API economy. We'll then introduce Azure API Management and explain how it provides a turnkey solution to a lot of the concerns that are associated with going down the route of exposing APIs. Finally, we'll talk through some case studies and leave you with a tangible next step for starting your own journey. Digital transformation is the buzzword of the moment. Unlike similar transformation trends of the past, if any of you can remember the e-business buzzwords in the early 2000s, this idea isn't based on buying a new generation of middleware to revolutionize business processes. Digital transformation is a step change in how organizations think about how they operate, how their workforce collaborate, how they use technology, and how they engage with their customers. There's many definitions of digital transformation, but Tom Loosemore, Group Director of Digital Services at the Cooperative, sums it up quite succinctly as applying the culture, practices, processes and technologies of the internet era to respond to people's raised expectations. We believe that digital transformation and the digital mindset is more about what you are rather than what you do. It's not about delivering digital products or services, it's about operating effectively in the digital age. It's also about becoming a responsive, open and efficient organisation, but this requires real change, not just lip service. To put this into context, in a recent Capgemini study of over 340 organisations, 40% of senior level executives believe their firms have a digital culture, whereas only 27% of the employees surveys agreed. Finally, becoming a digital organisation can't be achieved solely by appointing a chief digital officer. It's about fundamental structural, cultural and operational changes, driven by the whole leadership team as a cohesive change programme. So, where has digital transformation come from, and why now? Rather than a big bang change, it's really been an incremental revolution, as over the last 15 years there's been innovation across all areas and disciplines of organisations' technology and business processes. Agile is about improving software development processes to be more aligned to business objectives, to deliver value in iterative and incremental releases rather than expensive and risky big bang projects, and to have the notion of failing fast as a positive outcome with valuable insights to be gained, rather than failure as being seen as the worst possible outcome. The revolution in mobile computing has changed how people interact with devices, services and information. They are now constantly connected anywhere in the world. This demand has increased the number of channels organisations need to support in order to engage with customers, increasing complexity and total cost of ownership of these platforms. Machine learning is about taking advantage of the abundance of captured data and low cost of processing so that sophisticated algorithms can now be utilised to gain new insights or make decisions faster and at a scale not possible by human-driven processes. Customer-centred design means putting the customer at the heart of the digital experience, enabling a better understanding of their motivations, needs and desires. This enables the creation of services tailored to those goals that enables the customer, with the minimum friction, to achieve them, while generating a positive experience that will lead to enhanced customer loyalty while generating feedback that allow you to further refine the services and experience. Data-driven decision-making means making business decisions based on high-quality, verifiable data that can be effectively analysed and interpreted. The incorporation of an experimental mindset and feedback loops help the organisation make changes in flight for optimal outcomes. Automated marketing is the evolution of costly human-driven marketing processes to software-driven, scalable and cost-effective nurturing of prospects into customers by the provision of highly relevant, personalised, segmented content via many different channels from email to social media. Data science combines business domain knowledge, statistical analysis, machine learning algorithms and data manipulation to prove or disprove business hypotheses, which support strategic decision-making. A side effect of the agile mindset, DevOps is a step change in maturity of developing, deploying and supporting software, using automation to enable continuous integration of code changes, continuous deployment of new features, and the removal of traditional organisational silos to focus on the flow of delivering business value from concept through to production. And finally, the economies, scale and efficiencies of cloud technologies and their platform services allow organisations to rapidly develop, deliver and support platforms and services that are more secure, more scalable, more intelligent, require less operational support, have a lower total cost of ownership and shift spends from a CapEx to an OpEx business model. What's interesting is digital transformation is not really a problem for startups. Modern, born-in-the-cloud organisations benefit from all of these advances, yet have none of the legacy. But the story is not the same for mature organisations. They are the ones that need to undergo this pervasive transformation. If you look at the previous list of items, most of these innovations have been grassroots or bottom-up initiatives, people doing their jobs looking for ways to work smarter. This is one of the reasons that the digital mindset is so much more important than a specific digital strategy, because the digital mindset is a lens through which to judge and enact all strategies. If you get the mindset right, you'll be able to make the transformation happen. Or, as Peter Drucker, the late business management guru often referred to as the founder of modern management puts it, culture eats strategy for breakfast. There are three core pillars within any organisation that need to transform: the workforce, business processes, and the technology that enables and drives them. From a leadership perspective, the biggest impact you can have is to influence the culture of the organisation that encompasses these pillars, so that all changes within them reflect or improve that culture. That's how real transformation happens. Change the culture, and the rest will change as a result. To improve any of the pillars, you need to adopt an assess and invest feedback loop. First, understand your maturity and capabilities in the areas that need to be changed, created, or grown, and then allocate budget to improve in these areas, whether that be via training and development plans, change programs, investments in new technologies, or improvements in existing infrastructure. These transformation programs don't have to specifically target the core pillars individually. You can create a vision of cross-cutting concerns which aspire to loftier goals, such as improving customer engagement, transforming products, empowering employees, or optimizing operations. But delivering these improvements will fundamentally be based on how you transform these three core pillars and their interrelationships. So who is actually digitally transforming, and how? Lowe's, a leading home improvement store, plans to pilot technology to revolutionise home remodels. Customers will give their Pinterest boards to Lowe's, which will use advanced analytics to match customer interests with Lowe's product line. Using an augmented reality headset, customers will be able to see their new kitchens take shape before their very eyes, including the ability to change design elements such as backsplash colour by simply saying, "Let me see the wall colour in pewter grey." The end result is that customers will have confidence that they'll love their new kitchen after it's installed, without bringing home a single swatch, card, or sample. Cardiodiagnostics is enabling doctors to monitor heart patients in real time from anywhere in the world, essentially delivering inpatient attention in an outpatient setting. Portable monitoring devices send data to the cloud, where it can be analysed by doctors. If the patient feels a rhythmic abnormality in their heart, they press a trigger on the device, which sends a message to the Cardiodiagnostics Monitoring Centre. Honeywell is using advanced analytics in the cloud to design connected thermostats that deliver comfort as a service. By analysing data from millions of installed thermostats, Honeywell is able to better predict failures, do preemptive maintenance, and continuously improve its products. Rolls-Royce are using advanced analytics in the cloud to collect and analyse massive amounts of aircraft engine data, so that it can preemptively identify failing parts and make repairs before engines fail, minimising flight delays and disruptions that today cost the airline industry millions of dollars every year. This information also gives Rolls-Royce a better understanding of how it should structure its support contracts, how it can better manage risk, and what its product development needs are. Pinnacle Health is taking advantage of the cloud to remain competitive and deliver relevant data to doctors at the point of care. Surgeons now have the data they need to order the correct supplies, and financial officers can tell at a glance if a surgery was within the allowable insurance reimbursement threshold, with insurance claims that previously took 48 to 72 hours to process now taking a few minutes. When patients come in with issues, advanced analytics help caregivers determine the best course of treatment, such as which surgical devices and implants may be the best fit for a patient who needs a knee replacement, or the best approach to treat someone diagnosed with diabetes. Guitar brand Fender is using the cloud to help previously siloed sales teams and customer service teams work collaboratively to increase revenues. For example, if the customer service team is talking to a dealer about a particular issue, a salesperson is aware of the issue before he or she walks into the dealer's shop. Whole Foods put application sign-on credentials for its 91,000 employees in the cloud to support mobile productivity and seamless access to a growing portfolio of software-as-a-service business applications. Key benefits have included improved security, lower support costs relating to password resets and onboarding new vendors, and savings in on-premise infrastructure. Finally, Ecolab is using the cloud to improve how worldwide industries tackle water scarcity. Information from 36,000 water systems in more than 100 countries is fed into the cloud, where it provides actionable intelligence that can be used to benchmark performance and drive continuous improvement. Ecolab field personnel can use the data to effectively quantify and communicate the return on investment a customer achieved through its water management program, and recommend areas where additional investment in services might drive even greater reduction in water, energy, and operational costs. As the previous case studies illustrated, there are many ways to achieve digital transformation, and many reasons for doing so. However, they share a common theme: reimagining how you bring together people, technology, and processes to create new value. At the core of digital transformation are APIs, the means by which software components interact with each other, enabling the information flow through the digital feedback loop between customers and products. From consumer devices to the cloud, to the enterprise data center, and at all points in between, APIs are an essential underpinning of our modern digital world. API stands for Application Programming Interface, a set of procedures or protocols that allow the data and functionality of an application or service to be accessed and integrated into another application or service. To put it another way, an API is just like a user interface such as a web page, but geared for consumption by software rather than humans. So in these interfaces, information is transferred as raw data from system to system, rather than displayed visually, and functionality and services are called programmatically via known endpoints rather than by clicking buttons on a screen. An API allows two or more software applications to talk to each other. One application hosts the API, the other application calls the API, and gets a response. A big advantage of this approach is that you can provide third parties, customers, partners, and developers access to your functionality and data to integrate into their web and mobile applications, without needing to give them a copy of your internal IP. The API acts as a facade, controlling what is exposed and how it can be accessed. Additionally, you can use APIs to separate, protect, and reuse business logic and data for your own internal and external web and mobile applications. APIs are everywhere. Everyday actions like posting a message on a social network, reading the news on a smartphone, or buying a cinema ticket online are all completed through API calls. APIs provide many benefits to organisations, which can be summarised under these four pillars. Expand market reach. APIs enable partner ecosystems and co-opetition, allowing organisations to reach new audiences and niches. Foster innovation. APIs can be leveraged in new and unexpected ways by developers, creating disruptive business models. Lower total cost of ownership. APIs are a cost-effective way of providing support across many devices, operating systems, and development languages. Highly scalable business models. Well-designed APIs hosted on cloud platforms can scale to support global businesses. And APIs should not only be considered as externally facing. Companies that expose APIs internally can make it easier for different parts of the organisation to benefit from each other's data and applications. For example, maximize IP reuse. Increase efficiencies in maintenance, support, and development of core services by exposing as APIs. Accelerate development. Increase speed of development of new products and services by using APIs as building blocks of common functionality, for example payment processing, email sending, address lookups, or single sign-on. Consistency of information. Ensure data is accurate and consistent wherever it is used across the organisation by exposing it through central APIs, rather than sharing and duplicating spreadsheets or maintaining disparate and inconsistent repositories of information. Control access. By only supporting services and data through APIs, rather than ad hoc and uncontrolled requests for information, access and permissions can be controlled, monitored, and audited centrally. Entrepreneurship. Discoverable, documented, and consistent access to an organisation's central services and data, coupled with the speed of development enabled by using APIs as building blocks, encourages internal developers to innovate and create new propositions. Inside-out transformation. Adopting an API architecture internally eases the pain of a heterogeneous IT environment, allowing better collaboration between teams and applications using different tools and technologies. By wrapping your legacy processes and systems in standardized and consistent APIs, you're free to start digitally transforming from the inside out by replacing the legacy without disrupting core business processes. And of course, all of this experience can be leveraged when building externally facing APIs. APIs have enabled companies to break into new markets and reach new customers and partners. For many organisations, APIs are now a critical component of solutions that impact the operational bottom line. This positive effect on an organisation's profitability from APIs is known as the API economy. According to Harvard Business Review, in 2015, 50% of Salesforce's revenue, 60% of eBay's revenue, and 90% of Expedia's revenue was generated through their APIs rather than through their user interface. But it's not just happening for these established names. A new breed of companies has emerged that base their offerings entirely around APIs, such that their success is intrinsically dependent on the success of the products and services that consume them. For example, SendGrid is a customer communication platform for transactional and marketing email. They send about 30 billion emails a month and generate around $100 million in revenue. Stripe are a payment processing platform that handles around $20 billion worth of transactions a year. Their APIs are integrated into the likes of Shopify and Kickstarter, and they generated around $450 million in revenue last year. The API economy is definitely big business. APIs and the API economy enable new platform-based business models, which are the big new trend in disrupting existing industries. Everyone is familiar with platform-based organisations such as Uber, Airbnb or PayPal and what they're doing to established markets. A platform-based strategy differs from a product strategy in that it requires an external ecosystem to generate complementary product or service innovations and build positive feedback between the consumers and the platform. But the effect is a much greater potential for innovation and growth than a single product-orientated organisation can generate alone. The advent of the API economy can be attributed to 4 contributing factors. Technology trends, for example, mobile, Internet of Things, big data, and cloud. The trend of computer-to-computer communication means billions of devices generating and pushing data into connected services that are being consumed by billions of interconnected applications at a global scale and internet speed. The Internet of Things, or IoT, bots, smartphones, wearables, and embedded sensors all have inherent internal and external dependencies and underlying data and services provided by APIs. In addition, these APIs can add features, reach, and context to new products and services, or become products and services themselves. Business strategies. Digital disruption often takes a form of replacing a single component of an established industry, for example money transfers or credit scoring in financial services, implementing it using modern technology without the restrictions of legacy infrastructure, enabling easy and cost-effective consumption and the modern digital experiences that consumers now expect. Building a platform-based business rather than a product-driven one requires APIs to enable third-party and partner integrations, and in turn new competition models are enabled, where business competitors collaborate on products or services for mutually beneficial results. Regulations. Governments in the US and Europe are promoting open data initiatives in industries like banking and healthcare to foster innovation in new products, improvements in services, and reduction of cost. PSD2 is a forthcoming directive from the European Union that specifically uses APIs as a means for stimulating innovation and competition in the banking industry, opening up customer account data and payment instruments to third parties with the requisite authorization. Each country in the European Union is obliged to act on PSD2 and implement it as they see fit, with the banks under their jurisdiction forced to comply. healthit.gov forms part of the US Open Government Initiative, and is an effort to break down data silos and promote open data within healthcare with the introduction of electronic health records, or EHR. The key feature of an EHR is described as being that it can be created, managed, and consulted by authorised providers and staff across more than one healthcare organisation, meaning that integration between systems for the movement of data is essential. GDPR is another EU regulation intended to strengthen and unify data protection for all individuals in the EU, and applies to any organisation that processes or stores personal data relating to an individual based in the EU. As well as the auditing and privacy controls around the data concerned, the legislation includes the right to data erasure and the right to data portability, i.e. anyone can request the transfer of their personal data from one system into another based on open standards formats. Regulation has not only caught up with, but is now anticipating future trends in the digital era. Technology standards. Even though the adoption of agile delivery models has put an emphasis on rapid experimentation and development, and the application of DevOps practices has helped accelerate technology delivery and improve infrastructure quality and robustness, until recently, the biggest hurdles in a development lifecycle were still often the interfaces between two systems. By converging on simple common standards such as REST, representational state transfer, over HTTP, interoperability between applications built using vastly different technology and architectures is enabled. Open API, previously known as Swagger, has been adopted as a standard tool for documenting RESTful APIs, allowing the auto-generation of client software development kits and self-documenting code, all of which makes developing and consuming APIs easier, cheaper, and faster. For many organisations, joining the API economy means a shift to building and managing products, which presents a number of considerations on top of the maybe more obvious technical implications. For example, understanding the business value of an API, its value chain, and the underlying commercial model, which might seem like overkill for early experimentation, are a critical part of your API strategy, and may require maturing existing or developing entirely new capabilities. Just looking at some of the different monetization strategies throws up a whole host of options. Does it make sense to charge developers for the use of your APIs because they're getting all the value? To pay them for integrating your APIs into their applications, as they're generating value for you? Or neither, as value is being generated indirectly by the APIs? If you're going to charge, will you package up APIs into product bundles or treat them all individually? Will you charge per request, by subscription, or on enterprise terms? Would a freemium model make sense, and if so, under what circumstances does someone go from the free tier to being charged? In addition, product marketing and sales, governance around managing your API products from cradle to grave, and legal considerations around terms of use and data privacy all need strategic planning and associated capabilities across the organisation. So who are building successful API businesses? Here's a few examples. Stripe are a payment processing platform for all internet commerce. Their current valuation of $9.6 billion with revenue of $450 million last year. The volume of payments that go through their platform is around $20 billion a year. 27% of Americans will have bought something through Stripe in the past year, a big bump from just 3.8% 2 years ago. Lyft, Shopify, Kickstarter and Wish all use them. Their pricing is a 1.4 to 2.9% fee plus 30 cents per transaction. Twilio are a communication platform for SMS, voice and video. Last year their revenues were $277 million. They have 36,000 active customers and showed a 36% growth. They have many high-profile customers, many of whom are the big names in the platform economy, such as Uber, Airbnb, Lyft, Salesforce and TaskRabbit, to name a few. SendGrid are an email delivery service for campaign or transactional emails. They generate over $100 million in revenue and send 30 billion emails a month. They embraced a freemium model, which means of their 120,000 customers, 50,000 are paying customers. Auth0 are a modern identity platform. They process 1.1 billion logins per month and have prevented 1.3 million malicious login attempts. Last year they generated $9 million in revenue and raised $26 million in funding to help and grow the platform. Their customers include Harvard Medical School, Marks & Spencer, Schneider Electric and Safari. Import.io is a data extraction tool that uses machine learning to turn web pages into usable data. They raised $17 million in funding. Their customers include Microsoft, Amazon, Accenture, Uber and Pirelli. PCA Predict offers data validation services. API companies don't have to be startups. PCA Predict is 17 years old. It was formerly called Postcode Anywhere. It has over 10,000 customers in 50 countries and £10 million plus in turnover. But designing, developing and exposing APIs is not a risk-free strategy, and organisations should be aware of the following before they begin. Cyber attacks, for example denial of service attacks against the API. Overexposure, inadvertently exposing your business assets, data and IP to competitors or enabling APIs to be reverse engineered. Reputation damage. Poorly implemented API programs can tarnish the organisation's reputation and brand. APIs may have the unintended consequence of exposing poorly designed code that was not built for reuse or scale. Cannibalization of core business. A new API channel may undermine traditional business channels. API programs need business stakeholders, and they should be run like any other profit and loss business unit. Business leaders must adjust business unit expectations if traditional business revenue gets redirected to this new channel. So, there's many benefits of joining the API economy and using APIs as a mechanism for digital transformation, both internally and externally. But there's also a number of potential concerns around developing, marketing, and supporting APIs as a product, and there's clearly some risks involved in exposing business assets to the outside world. Most organisations are looking to answer at least some of these questions. How will we hide the complexity of our legacy internal systems and support their APIs without having to rewrite them or migrate them to the cloud? How will we enforce our IT and business policies and measure and report on how the APIs are being used? How will we make our APIs accessible to a global audience and engage with developers and consumers to help discovery, learning, adoption and feedback? How will we secure our APIs from unauthorized access and protect our internal systems from the outside world? How can we productionize our APIs and manage them as core products with the right monetization models? These questions raise the need for comprehensive API management, the process of creating and publishing APIs, enforcing their usage policies, controlling access, supporting the subscriber community, collecting and analysing usage statistics, and reporting on performance. An API management platform can help mitigate the risks of exposing APIs and provide the new capabilities required for joining the API economy. A portal for managing relationships with the consumers of your APIs, including their discovery and use. A comprehensive set of tools for productionizing your APIs and tailoring them to address the wide variety of potential usage scenarios. And visibility into how your APIs are being used and by who, including a way to give those users similar information. In its simplest form, an API management platform serves as a proxy between your business and the customers, partners, or developers using your APIs. Instead of connecting to your backend services directly, consumers of your APIs connect to an API management layer that provides all of the capabilities required for their safe, successful, and scalable use. By decoupling the API from its internal implementation, changes can be made without impacting external developers' applications. It also makes it possible to support a mix of technology implementations behind the scenes, but present a consistent, standardized, modern API layer to the outside world. Taking it a step further, APIs can enable what is known as a bimodal or two-mode IT process, i.e. the practice of managing two separate but coherent styles of work. The first mode is focused on predictability, keeping the core systems up and running, and making optimizations and improvements based on legacy change programs in well-understood areas. The second mode is focused on exploration and experimentation, solving new problems or creating new business value out of the core propositions that the business supports. Creating a bimodal environment should be the goal of every CIO, but IT managers are often torn between protecting their existing platforms and infrastructure and responding positively to business requests for new developments. APIs are the key to enabling this bimodal process, sitting between these two modes, providing the separation between heterogeneous and legacy infrastructure and the new products and services that the business want to develop rapidly. Below the API layer, systems are maintained and managed in a Mode 1 process, delivering consistent and predictable information. Above the API layer is the Mode 2 process, as the data and functionality stored in those Mode 1 systems can now be integrated via the internet through new applications, mobile devices, IoT, and wearables. It's important to design APIs from the outside in, i.e. driven by the requirements of the Mode 2 process, rather than based on the existing applications or technology infrastructure managed in Mode 1. This reiterates the need for a layer of API management to handle these new requirements, transforming the interfaces, wrapping disparate repositories of information, handling the new load, and providing the protection in terms of access and privacy rules. An API management platform has to play a few different roles. API registry, a collection of tools to help define the APIs and their specifications, generate API documentation, define access and usage policies, manage deployment of APIs across the various environments, managing versioning, and coordinate the overall API lifecycle. API Gateway, a server that acts as an API front end, implementing the policies and specifications that have been defined, for example throttling, as it routes requests through to back-end services. Often it includes transformations to orchestrate and modify the requests and responses as they are processed, for example to modernize legacy APIs. The gateway also provides non-functional and cross-cutting capabilities, such as collecting analytics, logging and caching, as well as authentication, authorization and security. Developer Portal, a community site that encapsulates all the information, documentation, pricing, examples, tutorials, SDKs, interactive consoles or live demos for consumers to subscribe and start using the APIs. It also acts as a support hub in terms of bug reports, release notes and feedback on the APIs. Azure API Management is a platform service within the Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform and provides a comprehensive, turnkey solution for publishing APIs both internally and externally as needed to create new channels, find new customers, and drive deeper engagement with existing ones. You'll have immediate access to all the core competencies needed to ensure a successful API program, including publishing your APIs, decoupling them from your backend systems, engaging with developers, business insights, analytics, security, and protection. And unless you want to, you won't need to understand or use any other Azure services or Microsoft technologies. Through its rich feature set, Azure API Management enables you to work with any host, API, and scale. Azure API Management is built to work the way you do. You'll be able to securely connect to backend services built and running on any technology stack. It doesn't matter if you select Azure or another service to host your APIs. Azure API Management is available worldwide and ready to scale up and down on demand without service interruption to handle any traffic, growth, or spike. Attract more developers. Azure API Management includes a self-service developer portal that provides access to an auto-generated API catalog, documentation and code samples. Developers can sign in using existing customer or work identities, manage their own access keys, see reports on their API usage, and make API calls without writing a line of code using an OAuth-enabled interactive API console. Secures and optimizes APIs. You can secure your APIs using a key, token, and IP filtering, enforce flexible and fine-grained quotas and rate limits, modify the shape and behavior of your APIs using policies, and improve latency and scale of your APIs with response caching. Provides API insights and analytics. You'll have the insights to understand how your APIs are being used, how they're performing, including near real-time analytics to help you identify trends that might affect your business. You can also log requests and response data for additional online and offline analysis. Azure API Management fills all the roles of an API management platform, acting as an API gateway, a publisher portal, and a developer portal. The API gateway is the endpoint that accepts API calls and routes them to your backend services, making the necessary request and response transformations along the way. It's responsible for enforcing security policies, usage quotas and rate limits, providing optimizations such as caching, and for collecting and logging all the metadata on how the APIs are being used for reporting and analysis. The Publisher Portal is the admin interface where you register and configure your APIs, defining or importing the schemas, packaging APIs into products, setting up policies, and managing users. And the Developer Portal acts as the community site for your developers, where they can read API documentation, try out the API via the interactive console, create their account and subscribe to get API keys and access analytics on their own API usage. Azure API Management launched on Microsoft Azure over 3 years ago in May 2014, and today supports around 7,000 customers, including 21 of the Fortune 100 list. It's supporting around 26,000 APIs and handling around 11 billion API calls per month, including 100 million calls a day by one single customer. Research shows that Azure API Management customers are among the most satisfied compared to customers of other vendors and solutions. One of the main differentiators and key advantages of the Azure API Management platform over other similar API management solutions is the integration into the wider Azure ecosystem. It's important to note that Azure API Management is a standalone service. However, the benefits multiply as you integrate additional Azure cloud services, as there's built-in, first-class support in the tooling and features to enable these scenarios. Security. Azure Active Directory and AAD B2C can be used to secure connections between the outside world and your API management layer, and also between API management and your internal APIs and applications. Azure VPN Gateway can be configured to secure connections between API management and your internal network in order to expose internal APIs and services. APIs. Many Azure services automatically generate APIs that can be directly imported into API management to present a consistent facade over your cloud API infrastructure. Logic apps, functions, API apps, and Azure Machine Learning web services can all be easily integrated using the tooling or management APIs. These technologies in turn support a variety of development languages, architectures, scale and pricing models, which means one centralized API layer can surface predictive modeling, line of business applications, data services, and on-demand processing. DevOps. API management is a platform service. You're not managing any infrastructure. Each piece can be provisioned and configured using declarative resource manager templates and the Azure Automation APIs. This means your API management processes, standing up new environments, importing and upgrading APIs, and managing products and policies can all be part of your continuous delivery and deployment pipelines and orchestrated through Visual Studio Team services, just as you're doing with the underlying APIs themselves. Analytics. API management integrates into Azure Event Hubs to capture telemetry about API usage, which can subsequently be persisted into the various Azure data repositories for analysis and reporting. In addition, Azure Monitor can be integrated, providing a single source for monitoring for all your Azure resources. With Azure Monitor, you can visualize, query, route, archive, and take actions on the metrics and logs coming from API management. So who is using API management? Here's a few examples. Newmarket. Part of the global Amadeus IT group, Newmarket delivers hospitality solutions across 154 countries to names such as Hyatt Hotels Corporation, the Trump Hotel Collection, and Embassy Suites Hotels. To help customers take advantage of its offerings, Newmarket wanted to create a new business model by offering access to its back-end systems via APIs, which could then be used by the companies and partners to deliver a better guest experience. The company's first offering is a set of APIs that give hotels the ability to provide personalised information to guests on virtually any device. The company wanted to capitalise on its ability to work with diverse technologies, which is one of its biggest competitive differentiators. They needed a platform that would not only provide the insight it needed, but also the ability to integrate with the disparate data sources and endpoints found throughout the hospitality industry. As you might imagine, there are a lot of different management and ownership relationships among properties, says Melissa Jurkowick, product strategist at Newmarket. For instance, management companies might own multiple brands, or a corporation might want visibility into hotels that they franchise but don't own. So while you can't control the types of IT solutions that all of those locations use, it doesn't make it any less necessary for them to be connected. We spent a good 6 to 8 months talking with vendors, Microsoft among them, and after comparing everything from price to capabilities to how the solution would fit with our overall architecture and roadmap, we ultimately chose Azure API Management. Lovenskjold Handel. A subsidiary of Norway-based Lovenskjold Vakero, Lovenskjold Handel oversees a popular building supplies chain under the Maximo brand. A few years ago, the company decided that it needed a B2B portal to complement its existing B2C e-commerce site. Unfortunately, the same architecture did not suit the needs of a B2B solution, where pricing varies according to customer size, projects, and promotional and volume discounts, all negotiated per customer. This added up to millions of different price combinations that overloaded the company's original e-commerce platform, with customers experiencing long delays just to receive a quote for a simple order. To address this issue, Lovenskjold Handel built a hybrid solution based on Azure API Management and Azure Cloud Services. Now, when a customer generates a quote on the B2B site, the request for price data is handled by an API hosted by Azure API Management. Behind the API, Azure API Management connects through an Azure App Service to Azure Table Storage, which stores products and prices for all B2B customers and is updated nightly by the internal on-premise systems. The new solution has dramatically improved response times on the B2B site, enabling Lovenskjold Handel to move ahead with new APIs that will support further enrichment of its B2B offerings. In the last 30 days, we have seen 130,000 calls to the APIs in our solution, says Per Rings, IT architect at Lovenskjold Handel. Queries that used to take 10 to 20 seconds now return in 80 milliseconds on average. The Azure API Management architecture is working so well, we've attracted 900 customers to the B2B portal in 3 months. Blackboard provides software solutions that power social good organisations, including non-profits, foundations, educational institutions, healthcare organisations, and corporate social responsibility. When the company decided to transition from selling on-premise software to a cloud-driven SaaS solution, it chose Azure API Management as a turnkey solution for publishing its APIs to the company's developer community. I think one of the biggest things we looked for as we were evolving our portfolio was to grow and modernise our APIs and the developer tools that we put into our customers' and partners' hands, says Dan Bauman, Staff Product Manager of Blackboard. Azure API Management was the perfect turnkey solution for publishing APIs to Blackboard's developer community. It facilitates creation of consistent and modern API gateways for existing back-end services hosted anywhere, as well as security and protection from abuse and overuse. API Management also offers insights into software usage and health, as well as automation and developer onboarding services. Since Blackboard launched its Sky API program in late 2016, new developers have continued to come on board and API traffic has grown steadily. The difference between what we've had in the past and what we've been able to do now, thanks largely to Azure API Management, is scale at the level we set our sights on, and to effectively deliver a consistent, delightful experience for our developers. Earth Networks owns one of the world's largest weather, lightning and greenhouse gas monitoring networks. It makes its weather data available to customers through cloud-based applications and APIs. Its Spheric API delivers real-time weather information, including extremely accurate forecasts to developers who want to integrate real-time data on weather alerts into their applications. Spheric API is a REST API, so it is easy to integrate into applications, and it provides more than 50 weather variables, including hourly forecasts for the next 6 days for any latitude and longitude point. When the company began selling its Spheric API, which delivers real-time weather data, it wanted to minimize the work of registering partners, provisioning the API, monitoring usage and billing. By switching to Azure API Management, Earth Networks has streamlined the task of configuring and managing APIs. Azure API Management is a great solution that allows you to jump in and create an API deployment solution without a lot of technical know-how, says Jay Fristed, Enterprise Product Director at Earth Networks. Setting up integration partners is much simpler, reducing an hour's work to 10 or 5 minutes. I'm saving about 20 hours a month by using Azure API Management. This gives me more time to help enhance our solutions. Fantasy Data provides data to the fantasy sports industry, providing everything from real-time player stats to historical datasets. Because such information can be difficult and costly to acquire, the data industry for fantasy sports has historically been dominated by large incumbent players. Fantasy Data wanted to become a game changer by making real-time sports data more affordable and accessible, and that meant offering services that could support cross-platform app development and work with virtually any programming language. Fantasy Data chose Azure API Management, which enables the app developers, who are its customers, to easily build fantasy sport apps for virtually any device, demand for which has increased exponentially with the rise of mobile computing. What's more, it's enabling developers that were using other data providers to switch easily to Fantasy Data and go live within a matter of weeks. This platform definitely opened the door for a lot of people to build their own sports applications for websites and mobile devices, says Scott Gimple, Chief Executive Officer at Fantasy Data. We've succeeded in creating an open API that empowers people to be as creative as they want. Sonoma are one of the largest media companies in Europe and have operations in multiple countries and offerings across virtually every type of media. To simplify the delivery of online services across its business groups, Sonoma began building reusable APIs that provide access to identity, payment, and subscription data. This required a secure and scalable API management platform, including tools for monitoring API usage across various digital channels and geographies, the flexibility to support a complex mix of brands and digital assets, and the ability to support developers working in a variety of programming environments as they target different platforms and devices. The company's new solution, based on Azure API Management, connects diverse assets hosted in Sonoma's data centers and other environments such as Amazon Web Services. We're serving millions of API calls per day through the Azure platform without any scalability worries, says Timo Turvo, Director of Technology Strategy at Sonoma Corporation. Azure API Management and our API-first architecture support the iterative development needed for arriving at the best customer experiences, says Turvo. The media business is very event-driven. I'm confident that we can handle the traffic and that the system will scale out to all the volumes we would ever need during a peak and then back down again. It could be a football match or any other major event, but whatever the event, we can create a monetization model in which we sold special event tickets. An API management platform on Azure enables us to be prepared for those types of business-led capacity and availability challenges. So what does it actually take to join the API economy? Value proposition. Focus on the business value and the market rather than the API itself. By targeting a particular audience with specific needs, companies can build a business case and set priorities for and limits to the exercise. Monetization. Ensure the right commercial framework is in place to recover the value of the API in a fair way. Technical skills. The development and operation of enterprise-grade APIs requires new skills and design patterns. Data privacy. Wider organisational policies around data protection need to be implemented if the API handles sensitive or personal data. Security. Access to the API must be secure and appropriate operational monitoring must be in place to control authorised access. Security holes may emerge that were previously lying dormant in legacy technical debt. Legal and terms and conditions. Ensure the permissions of API users are clear so it is used in an appropriate manner. This will include topics such as trademarks, copyright and branding, as well as rights of use associated with the data or functionality exposed by the API. Understanding what you have used to create APIs, what you're exposing, and how your data and services will be consumed are all important factors. Product lifecycle. APIs must be treated as any other product with a full product lifecycle plan, including support and sunsetting. So how do you start? You need to put a feedback loop in place where you assess your maturity and invest in improving it. To help CXOs and business decision makers assess their organisation's ability to evolve towards an API-driven business model, Endjin has created the API Organisational Maturity Matrix. This is an Excel-based tool with the aim of gaining an understanding of the existing organisational maturity across the different disciplines required to deliver value to, sell to, and support a global community of developers consuming your APIs. The purpose of the API Maturity Matrix is to help create an assess and invest feedback loop within the organisation to measure the current state of maturity, low, medium or high, of understanding and expertise in all the areas required to support an API-based business model, and then to formulate a plan of investment to increase organisational maturity to the high level across all those areas required to deliver a successful API proposition to market. Here's an example of the matrix filled in for a company that's new to the world of APIs. They've identified that they have low maturity when it comes to the various areas required to design, deliver, market and support an API proposition. You can see from the action column that they need to invest in terms of time and workforce in order to create working groups to gain a deeper understanding in areas of policy, or in terms of time and money kick off R&D experiments in order to develop skills or assess different tools, technologies and platforms. To start your digital transformation journey using the power of APIs and Azure API Management, you can download a copy of the API Maturity Matrix from endjin.com using the link at the end of this video. If you want to know more about how Endjin can help you to take advantage of the new business opportunities that this technology is enabling, then drop us a line at hello@endjin.com or chat with us via our website. Thank you.